All your life, you have been told Christopher Columbus discovered America, but I'm here to tell you that is not completely true. Watch till the end. On 1492, when Christopher Columbus arrived at the Caribbeans, he met a large area of land which he called the New World. But this land was already occupied by a group of people called the Native Americans. The Native Americans were the earliest inhabitants of America. They are believed to have migrated from Asia through Alaska during the Ice Age.
These tribes were highly developed, with their own systems of government, unique cultures and languages, agriculture and trade. But in the early 16th century, European explorers arrived, and everything changed. The European powers received news of this new world and began exploration. The British established its first settlement in North America, under Sir Walter Raleigh. This was known as the Roanoke Colony. The natives in this colony disappeared mysteriously, leaving no trace behind. The British established new settlements in Virginia in 1607 and another settlement in Plymouth in 1627. This was made up of 13 colonies, which would later become the United States of America. Tensions between the colonies and Great Britain continued to grow, and in 1775, the American Revolution began. The American Revolution was fought by the 13 colonies. They were determined to end British rule. The American Revolution was caused by a series of oppression on the colonists. This included the Stamp Act, which was basically the British imposing huge taxes on the Americans, demanding a tax on books and all printed materials. The colonies did not like this. They protested, and this act was removed. Later, Charles Townshend, the chief treasurer of Great Britain at that time, introduced the Townshend duties. This was another way of imposing more indirect taxes on imported goods, such as glass, lead, and tea. This made life so difficult for the colonists. A year later, on the 5th of March 1770, the colonists rioted against British soldiers, throwing snowballs at them. This caused the British soldiers to fire shots at them, killing 5 colonists and wounding 6. This was known as the Boston Massacre. After the Boston Massacre, the British wanted to punish the people of Boston. They introduced the Intolerable Acts. These were 4 acts issued by the British Parliament, targeted at Boston because they were the strongest resistance against British rule. These intolerable acts included the Boston Port Bill, which caused the harbour to be closed and prevented trade in Boston; the Massachusetts Government Act, which allowed a military governor to be appointed replacing the existing local governments; the Administration of Justice Act, which allowed any British official charged with capital offences to face trial in England. Finally, it included the Quartering Act, which demanded that the American colonies provide British troops with food and accommodations. All these acts lead to the First Continental Congress, where the colonists planned a protest. Tensions increased in the colonies, and the American Revolution, also known as the Independence War, broke out in 1775. This is an important moment in American history, as the 13 colonies, including Massachusetts and Boston, fought against the British government and won their independence, with George Washington becoming the first president. The American Revolution lasted from 1775 to 1783. The Treaty of Paris was signed, and Great Britain declared the United States of America an independent state. After the American Revolution, Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence, and the U.S. Constitution was established. Another document known as the Bill of Rights was ratified by James Madison in 1791. These documents would shape American democracy and guarantee individual freedoms for centuries to come. The early years of the United States were marked by westward expansion, conflicts with Native American tribes, and the growth of slavery. The issue of slavery would eventually lead to the American Civil War under President Abraham Lincoln. The new president, Abraham Lincoln, was not in support of slavery and had plans to abolish it in all the states. The southern states didn't want this, so they seceded from the U.S. government, forming the Confederate States. This caused the Union Army to declare war on the rebel states. This was known as the American Civil War. On January 1, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which stated that all persons held as slaves in the rebel states, Confederate states, are free and shall remain free. This allowed the Union Army to gain more soldiers because former slaves were willing to join the army and fight. The Confederate States suffered many losses, and on May 26, 1865, the war ended. The leader of the Confederate States, Jefferson Phineas Davis, surrendered to the Union Army. Although slaves were set free during the war, it would take another century for African Americans to achieve true equality. The early 20th century saw the U.S. involvement in two world wars, the Great Depression and the Civil Rights Movement. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. fought for racial equality, but was killed on the 4th of April, 1968. In the mid-20th century, the United States had grown into a global superpower. During this time, bloody wars were fought. This includes the Cold War, which was between the United States, the Soviet Union, and their allies. It began in 1947, 2 years after World War II. This war officially ended in 1991. During the Cold War, the country also fought the Vietnam War, which was fought by the people of North Vietnam and South Vietnam. This was caused by disagreements between communism and democracy. North Vietnam practiced communism, but South Vietnam did not. The American government did not want communism to spread to South Vietnam, so it supported it with money and military supplies to fight against North Vietnamese soldiers. Well, the United States did not win this time. The war ended after both sides lost great numbers of soldiers. It lasted from the 1st of November 1955 to the 30th of April 1975. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were major events in the fight for equality. The Chicano movement, which was the civil rights movement by the Mexican-American people, the women's liberation movement, and the LGBTQ+ rights movement also gained momentum. The end of the Cold War in 1991 and the fall of the Berlin Wall marked a new era of global politics, and the United States continued to grow. On September 11, 2001, a terrorist group known as Al-Qaeda under Osama bin Laden launched suicide attacks on America, crashing planes into public buildings. Over 2,500 people died as a result of this attack on September 11th. The President of the United States, George W. Bush, declared war on this terrorists group. This was known as the War on Terror. Summary today: America is a diverse country with people from all corners of the world. It's a country that's still grappling with its past, still fighting for true equality, and still trying to live up to its founding ideals. What did you learn from this video? If you have a favorite historical event or topic you'd like to see covered in a future video, let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, consider subscribing for more content like this. I'll be exploring topics like history and culture, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.